You're watching Sky News Money.
Welcome to Business Success. I'm Chloé James for RFI Group. Surely it is the dream of many entrepreneurs to gain the backing from one of the country's most established, powerful and well-funded organisations, which tonight's guest has achieved just a few weeks ago, securing a pretty eye-watering $40 million cash injection from the Westpac Group to take his business ZipMoney to the next level. Tonight's second guest is the founder of Simply Ask It, a fantastic social marketplace for consumers and businesses to find the right professional advice and expertise from a range of industry experts for free. Sounds like some pretty good advice for many watching tonight. In 2013, with his business partner, Peter Gray co-founded ZipMoney, a point-of-sale credit and digital payment service for consumers and merchants. Their premise is simple: buy now, pay later, interest-free, promising to provide a smarter way to pay for life's larger purchases over time and on your own terms. Welcome, Peter, to Business Success.
Thanks, Chloe. Nice to be here.
Great to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. Now, I've given you a pretty big sort of wrap-up in the opener there, $40 million from Westpac. But let's just start with ZipMoney. If you can just explain to the group exactly who you are and what you do.
Sure. So ZipMoney is a next-generation alternative payments provider. We're a fintech player disrupting the world of retail finance, credit cards and payments. So we sort of use technology to deliver our customers great user experiences, better products, the ability to pay with better terms and interest-free, as you alluded to. And for our merchants and our retailers, we offer them the ability to offer their consumers payment choice, and we drive incremental sales to their bottom line.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, you're doing great things in the industry. You're shaking it up, certainly different from, you know, the major providers out there. When you and Larry, I know Larry Diamond, began the business together, what was that sort of light bulb moment that you went, we're going to start something, I think we can create something different?
Well, that's an interesting question when the light bulb moment came. We've certainly come a long way from our initial meetings at the Commodore Hotel at North Sydney with some butcher's paper and an idea. And you know, conceptually, we identified a great opportunity, and we sort of just went for it. And there's been, you know, certainly a number of benchmarks and milestones on the way that we look upon fondly. Our first office, our first employee, our first retailer, our first customer, our second office, 1,000 customers, $100 million warehouse facility listing on the ASX, $200 million facility with National Australia Bank, and obviously, as you referred to recently, a $40 million strategic investment from Westpac.
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, not a bad investment at all, Westpac. I mean, having that kind of backing in those numbers. I love that you started at the Commodore. I know it well, in North Sydney. Tell me a little bit about when you were starting out, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced, maybe in those really early stages, to where you see yourself now and the huge growth that you've experienced?
So I guess a couple of the interesting or difficult challenges for Zip as a business were essentially we're providing loans to consumers, so we needed a debt facility to be able to fund the loans. In the early days, as we grew significantly, we didn't have access to a huge amount of debt funding, so literally Larry and Adam were on the phone every Friday, driving around to friends and family and borrowing money so that we could actually fund the loan book. Obviously, we have that problem solved somewhat at the moment. I guess the other problem probably was credibility. While we knew we had a great product and a great process, and we were, you know, giving great demos to you know, large enterprise clients, at the end of the demonstration, they acknowledged the product was significantly better than our, you know, the incumbent. But who are you? Who's ZipMoney? So, you know, how did we sort of gain the confidence of those merchants to have a chance? Yeah,
I love that you've brought that in, and let's talk a little bit about sort of getting merchants on board. How do they know who ZipMoney are? How do you kind of explain your proposition and explain that, you know, it's a great way to go for someone out there doing something a little bit differently?
So essentially, Larry cold called the majority of the first 100 merchants, and Adam and I did the same. So it was sort of a hard slog. To some degree, we're not reinventing the wheel in terms of the promotional finance concept is very well known and understood in Australia thanks to Jerry Harvey and Harvey Norman. So there was sort of a known market for us to attack in the first place, and obviously as we've gained sort of traction, we're able to sort of penetrate other markets and industry verticals where promotional finance hadn't perhaps been prevalent before.
Absolutely. Let's dive into this Westpac injection that, I've given the huge leader into. I read it a couple of weeks ago and immediately, as you know, emailed you and Larry and said, listen to this, got to talk about it, got to bring you on business success. How do you get someone like Westpac on board? And tell me about what it's like to walk into that meeting, and also tell me what it's like when you get the cash and what are you going to do with it?
So I guess the first piece of the puzzle was we sort of identified we needed to raise some capital, and we had been through a number of processes in the journey with ZipMoney, essentially with VCs and listing on the ASX, and some rounds with some institutional funders. We'd also seen some examples of some great strategic partnership arrangements overseas with the likes of Klarna and Stripe, and so we sort of targeted a strategic partner as the way to go for Zip. So we ran a process. We effectively narrowed it down to approximately 6, beneficial strategic partners, and we settled with Westpac. So we sort of liked the way that Westpac had really identified a collaboration versus competition sort of approach. They understood they were being disrupted by fintechs around various aspects of their business, and instead of trying to put their head in the sand or compete with those businesses, they thought it would be a much better arrangement to partner. So we sort of identified some core values again with the deal team at Westpac, and were able to really sit down and get down to serious negotiation.
I love that you've brought up Klarna and Stripe there, and I love that you've brought up this partnership piece, because I'm talking so much on business success at the moment about partners with some of these huge organisations. And what's your view generally? I'm guessing it's probably a good one, but your view generally on partnerships, and do you think, I just want to ask you, do you think in Australia we're going to start seeing much more of this kind of thing in business in this country?
Yeah, I actually do. I think, particularly in fintech, I think, the couple of deals that we've done, and there are some other examples in the market where fintech is really sort of gathering, traditional players' attention. I guess we would view partnerships, and particularly strategic partnerships with Westpac, as a great way to rapidly scale our business. It allows us to sort of continue to focus on our core competencies, and the partner brings to the table their core key competencies, and you're able to sort of get there together. Yeah,
and you kind of get the best parts. I mean, talking about scale and growth there, and I said in the opener, an established company, 200 years old this year, it's that's huge for you to be a part of and to sort of have them aligned sort of with your brand. So I can see that. Fintech, another awesome point you've made there. I'm going to an event at Stone and Chalk tomorrow that's actually HSBC talking to fintechs about how fintechs and traditional players can work together. So quite an interesting space. I want to just wrap up a little bit more, Peter, on what we're going to sort of talk about next, which is you and Larry and the business, and advice that you would give to business owners out there starting something today and hoping to get to a point somewhere like where you've got to.
Okay, so I guess with Larry and I, we're pretty lucky in some ways. We met randomly. We didn't actually know each other, prior to ZipMoney. Fundamentally, we share the same sorts of values at the core. We wanted to deliver fair and transparent products. We'd identified the opportunity. While we're both probably generalists and all-rounders, we do have specifically different skill sets. I'd probably be the more conservative of the two, with a credit and operational background, and Larry would probably be slightly more aggressive, more heavily focused on sales and product and tech. And we formed a sort of a very complementary partnership. We're able to challenge each other on a daily basis and move forward 10 minutes later after we've reached a great decision. I think in terms of any advice that I might give, which I'd reluctantly give, I suppose, for startups, is to sort of identify the opportunity, but understand how you're going to actually capitalise on the opportunity. It's all good and well to have a great idea, but you need to understand how you're going to get there. You need to have the right people around you. I think I'd also, from our experience, encourage anyone to get a product to market, because once you've proved your concept, it's actually better than an idea and more valuable than an idea straight away.
I think that's really good. It's funny that you mentioned that, actually, because you're the one on television tonight, not Larry. So there you go, even though he might be the sort of front man of things, Peter. Just a little bit more on what you've learnt about yourself throughout this process, and maybe I'm going to narrow that right down as well to the last few weeks and the kind of experiences that you've obviously had.
Well, I think I've learnt that a somewhat lazy teenager can actually work very, very hard if they buy into something and believe in the concept. And it's never too late for anybody. So hard work gets you there. What you learn about yourself is that if you back yourself and have a go, you can get the outcome that you dream of.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't know if you were a lazy teenager, but you're doing pretty well now. Where to next for ZipMoney? What's your sort of strategic direction and look at? I mean, you're talking about growth and scale, which you're obviously going to be able to do, I would have thought, in great amounts for the next 12 months.
Yeah, I think we see a great opportunity for ZipMoney at the moment. Globally, there's been a significant rise in the penetration of alternative payments. Locally, there's been some movement in the legislation which are favourable for fintechs and financial services players with ambitions to perhaps compete with some of the bigger boys. So we are firmly focused on taking advantage of this opportunity over the next 3 to 5 years and probably building out a larger suite of financial services products and just taking advantage and capitalising on the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think, it's an opportunity to capitalise on, isn't it? I mean, really, as you're saying, these alternative providers, they were sort of alternative and now it's partnership, but really, a lot of people nowadays are really just using these as what they're doing and how they're managing their finances. What drives and inspires you in business?
Well, my family inspire me and drive me. I think every day the team at ZipMoney, we've got a great team, they inspire me to come into work and put the nose to the grindstone. But I think we've sort of just touched on the opportunity here for ZipMoney, and I think everyone who's involved senses that we are on the verge of something special, and we're very much aligned on working together to take advantage of that opportunity, and it is truly inspirational. Yeah,
it truly is. And listen, it's been so amazing to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much for your time, Peter. I think it's amazing to see what ZipMoney is doing. I'm excited to have had you on the show at this point of your career so that I can watch where you go next. It's time for a quick break, but coming up we're going to chat to Simply Ask It, a service that helps business owners make the right moves. We'll find out more now.